Prime Minister, you say you don't know yet who is responsible for the dam attack in Ukraine, but if it turns out that Russia is responsible, what actions will you take, given that President Zelensky has called this a bomb of environmental destruction?
It's too early for us to say definitively the cause of the attack. Our military and security services are currently investigating it. But if it is intentional, it would represent an unprecedented level of barbarism.
Yeah.
Throughout this war, Putin has deliberately and as part of an active strategy targeted civilian infrastructure and civilian targets. And that's appalling and it's wrong. That's why not only are we supporting Ukraine militarily, we're providing humanitarian support in advance, actually, of this particular situation. But also, we've been providing resources to those who are responsible for bringing people to justice for war crimes and others, and the UK is playing a leading role in that too.
Given that you just said it was an attack of unprecedented barbarism, that it's an attack on critical infrastructure, does the response need to step up from allies?
Well, I think you've seen the response has stepped up from allies. The UK, I'm proud, has played a leadership role in providing UK with particularly military support. You'll see that in the coming weeks as Ukraine conducts its counter-offensive. But we were the first country to provide main battle tanks, the first country most recently to provide longer-range weapons. Those will make a difference. But when it comes to holding people to account, it's important that we support that work to gather evidence, to provide legal support, and we're doing that too.
All right, Prime Minister, let's go on to your trip here as well as Ukraine, AI. I want to talk to you about AI because you have a very good understanding of this issue, but most of our viewers don't. So before we get into the regulatory element of it, can you explain to people why there is, as you put it, an existential threat if AI becomes more intelligent than humans? What's the worst case scenario and how does it play out?
I think when it comes to AI, first of all, is to recognise that there clearly are benefits that we can realise for society and our economy, and particularly with things like drug discovery, where we're already starting to see those benefits, which I think everyone will welcome.
Yes.
But at the same time, people will be concerned when they hear from the creators of the technology themselves saying they worry about the existential risk that AI poses.
Can you explain it?
Yeah,
Because
because people are not quite sure of the full capability of what AI will be able to do over time. The pace of that technology is accelerating at a rate that people didn't quite think was possible, and that's why it's important that we in government put guardrails in place, and that's why I brought the companies together in Downing Street a few weeks ago to talk about what the appropriate guardrails should be to make sure that we can protect ourselves against those risks.
It's confusing. Can you paint a picture of the risk?
Well, look, I'm not going to get into this business of scaremongering people, because I think what people will say, well, hang on, this is a new technology which we don't fully know yet what it's capable of doing. The creators themselves have talked about risks on a scale on parallel with nuclear war and pandemics, and when people hear that, they'll rightly be worried about that.
You disagree?
No, but that's why I've actually been bringing the companies together to talk about guardrails to put in place to prevent those kind of things from happening, and that's why I think it's important that we do that.
So very, very important, and I think the public will want to hear this. So what you're saying is, if it's not regulated properly, it could be on the scale of equivalent to nuclear risk. It could kill humans. We have to monitor it, have to regulate it.
It's absolutely right that we put guardrails in place because the technology is enormously powerful. It's going to reshape every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
And whilst that will bring many opportunities and benefits, it also poses risks, not just existential, but also risks of misuse of the technology. And that's why guardrails are important and regulations are important.
Your AI task force chair, Matt Clifford, frightened me, certainly, because he said that we could be just 2 years away from AI being able to kill many humans, and the situation could be terrifying. I mean, I was scared. Were you?
No, so there's a range of opinions on how quickly the technology will develop. But I think what is clear is that there are very respected people who are involved in developing the technology who themselves are now concerned that it's improving and growing at such a pace that we need to be more alert to these risks now. Now, look, I started talking about AI a couple of years ago. As Chancellor, I invested in scholarships for those from disadvantaged backgrounds to do AI master's courses to strengthen our research capability and to provide opportunity for people. So I think I'm well placed, and I think the UK is well placed to lead this conversation.
Leading me neatly into my next question, which is about regulation. The truth is Brexit has hurt us in this, hasn't it? Because you're locked out of key forums between the EU and the US where AI governance plans are negotiated. while Britain's requests for similar dialogue with Washington are being rebuffed. Do you accept, as a mid-sized country competing with giant power blocks of US, China, EU, it's a struggle for the UK to be heard? And do you have to shift the dial with Biden in these next 2 days to call this trip a success?
I actually have enormous confidence in our country when it comes to this question of AI, because the facts speak to themselves. Outside of the US, we are the leading democratic AI nation. Look at the number of companies we have, the amount invested, the quality of our researchers. And if you talk to the companies themselves, I think they would echo much of what I've said. And that's why the UK is the first and I think only place where all the leading companies have opened their international offices. The UK is the only place that has brought them all together, as I did in Downing Street a few weeks ago. So actually, I think we are well placed to lead and shape this conversation on regulation.
And when you talk to President Biden about this tomorrow, what do you need to come out with so that we all say the Prime Minister scored a win there? We have our foot under the table on AI. What do you need? What's the tangible thing that we should all be looking for?
I think there are a few things that people should be looking for. I think the first is, look, the US is our closest trading partner, but I always want to strengthen that relationship. So I'm pleased to announce today £14 billion of investment. That's going to support thousands of jobs in the UK. That's really important. Next, I want to make sure that our trading relationship, our economic relationship evolves to protect us against the new threats that we face, not just AI, but others as well. So expect to see me talking to President Biden. Expect to see me talking to President Biden about economic security tomorrow, because I want to make sure that our relationship can protect our citizens and also continued support for Ukraine. These are all the topics we'll talk about tomorrow.
I'm going to have to move on because I haven't got much time left. So talking about the economy, Prime Minister, you promised economic competence, but the Truss mortgage turmoil, it goes on under you. Hundreds of deals were pulled from the markets last week. The average new 2-year fixed mortgage is at 5.72%. Labour is leading the Conservative parties on polling when it comes to the economy. You're the man that's meant to sort this all out. Can you tell our viewers when you think this terrible situation might ease? End of the year, 2024?
Yeah, first of all, I know how difficult it is, and that's why when I, at the beginning of the year, set out 5 priorities for the country to halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists, and stop the boats. The first of those was to halve inflation, because it's inflation that's eating into people's pay packets, it's causing challenges with the cost of living, and that's pushing up interest rates, which are harming people's mortgage bills. Look, what I've said is that I want to halve inflation. You know, I'm hopeful that we can do that by the end of the year. It's not easy, and when I set that target out, I knew that it was ambitious because I knew that it wasn't easy. Everyone actually said, oh, that was too easy, but actually people are realising now it's not easy.
It's very sticky inflation in the UK.
And that's why we have to stick to the plan. And look, inflation is now starting to fall. People should have confidence that the plan is working, but we've got to stick to it because that's how we'll ease the burdens on the cost of living and bring down interest rates.
2 of your 5 pledges, inflation halved by the end of the year, the UK out of recession by the end of the year. If you fail on either of them, do you take personal responsibility? You don't blame the Bank of England, you don't blame consumers, you don't blame businesses. It's on you personally because they're your personal pledges.
Of course it's on me personally. I'm the Prime Minister. I'm the person who set out those 5 pledges to halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists, and to stop the boats. And I intend to deliver on those. And when it comes to growing the economy, as you mentioned, we've already avoided the recession that many predicted. People are upgrading our growth forecasts as we speak. I'm announcing £14 billion of investment into the UK, which is going to support thousands of jobs. And just this week, I managed to explain to the country how we're progressing our boats plan, which means that this year,
I was there.
You were there, crossings into the UK down by almost a fifth over the first 5 months of this year. So look, the plans are working, but I'm not complacent. There's work to do, and I intend to deliver. So it's a deal break with the British public if you don't deliver it by the end of the year. That's on you. It's absolutely my responsibility. I've told the public to hold me accountable. They should be able to have politicians who deliver what they say, and that's what I intend to do.
Final question. Your Chancellor last week said he was prepared to risk recession if interest rates rise to bring inflation down. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I think what the Chancellor was saying is that inflation is the challenge that we must confront. Obviously, monetary policy, interest rates are a decision for the Bank of England, so it wouldn't be right for me to comment on that. But look, I set out 5 priorities: halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists, and to stop the boats. The first of those is to halve inflation. That's the thing that I want to make sure we deliver, because that's what will help.
Even if it means
that's
recession.
what, in the long term, that is the best way to help British families.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.